And welcome back to the channel where we talk about only good comics. I'm Brant, and this is Friday First. This is that series where we talk about those brand new #1 issues, new character debuts, new story arcs, and the like. And this is for the first books of February 2025. They come out on February 5th of this year. And so I'm back, and we're going to talk about some comics. There's not a whole lot of first this week, but that's okay. We've still got plenty to talk about. I've got 4 recaps from last week, and then I've got 3 honorable mentions, and then we've got about 7 other books, I think it is. So an average size amount of books. So we still got plenty to talk about. So last week we had a bunch of #1 issues. I only got to read 4 of them. One of them I will tell you I skipped on. Actually, a couple of them I skipped on. I think I skipped on Blood Train. It just didn't look like my thing. And then on the seasons, it wasn't what I expected it to be. So I flipped through it and just tried to get the vibe of the story, and it just wasn't what I was expecting at all. And I didn't feel like it was a story that I wanted to devote myself to with all the other stuff that I read. So those are 2 that I actually skipped on from last week. Anyway, even though I skipped on Blood Train, I did check out Kill Train. This is from Mad Cave Comics. And by the way, Blood Train is a one-shot. I also did not know that. That's another reason I didn't pick it up. This one is actually a series. And so Kill Train is about population control in the city, and it's unclear exactly. I think they might have said it in there, but it was unclear to me exactly what time period this was, because some of the tech and the conversations and everything felt like it was in the future, but some of the way people acted and stuff felt more in the past. I don't know. It was a little confusing, more kind of like Gotham, in a way, but not quite the same. But I could just be reading more into it, or I could be, I don't know. Anyway, I wasn't sure what the time period was, but all I did know was there was the city. They are they have overpopulation, so they decided to control it with this process of picking random trains through the city and killing all the people on them. And supposedly it's humane and painless and quick and all this stuff. And what they find out through the course of this series, or through the course of this issue, is that it is very much not. Just like the cover depicts there, it is very violent, it is very harsh, it is um the people that they've chosen to actually do the killing are, we'll say, unhinged. So it's very much not what the public has been sold on. And so it starts off with a kill train. We see exactly what happens on a kill train, and then we meet this person that has gone through these troubles, and everybody in her life is just kind of piling on and blaming her for all of it, basically saying, you're too sensitive, you need to toughen up, you need to all this stuff. And she's gone through a lot of personal trauma recently in the past year or 2 or whatever it is. So she ends up on, well, I don't want to spoil it, but she ends up encountering one of these situations. And so and it happens very close to a previous one, which doesn't usually happen, and all this stuff. So for me, I like the story. I like the build up. I like the premise of it. I think it's interesting. The pacing, though, was a little off for me personally. I felt like certain parts it dragged, other parts it went really fast. So there wasn't this nice balance, this nice flow to it. It was like boom, 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 boom. Oh, okay, let's slow it way down. And boom, boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? So just the pace was just a hair off. Otherwise, I thought it was an enjoyable read. I'll definitely come back for issue 2 because I want to find out what happens. But it was a decent read. I enjoyed it. Next up, we have Silverhawks from Dynamite Entertainment. I said last week I have no connection to this show. I never watched Silverhawks back in the day. For whatever reason, they were just not on my radar. Wasn't my thing. I watched all the other stuff. This and actually Thundercats. I've watched very little Thundercats. It just wasn't my thing either. I don't know why. I gravitated towards other stuff. I gravitated towards He-Man and Transformers and G.I. Joe and those things. So I don't, whatever reason, this one didn't jump on my radar. So I knew of them, I'd seen them, seen the toys, all this stuff, but had no connection to them. So where we pick up with this series is actually 100 and it's over 100 years, maybe 150 years in the future from past the show, after they've defeated the big villain that was apparently, in the cartoon and all this stuff in the past stuff. 100 and some odd years have passed since they've defeated this guy, and he's been in prison. And so now all the Silverhawks, I guess they age differently in this universe. All the Silverhawks, which are half human, they're basically cyborgs. They've had enhancements and stuff, whether they've been through injuries or whatever. They've had enhancements. So all of them are old. They're all retired. The last one is about to retire. They're about to shut down their base and everything when a prison break happens, and this guy gets out. And all of a sudden, they decide they've got to do something about it, but they're too old and frail, and there's no way that they could beat him again because they could barely beat him the first time. But lo and behold, we start off the story with a group of police officers that get brutally attacked, and only one of them survives. And you can see where this is headed. So it's basically relaunching the Silverhawks premise with a brand new team, with a brand new. It's basically a sequel, 100 and some odd years in the future, but all the previous Silverhawks are there going to mentor and guide this new class of Silverhawks. And yeah, so I thought that was a pretty cool concept, pretty interesting way to pick it up after so long. The only thing that was off-putting for me personally was the art style, and it wasn't bad. It was actually decent art, but it was because of the context of the story and the material, and at times the violence. I felt like the art was too cartoony, and it wasn't like there wasn't a good contrast between, like, Invincible is more of a cartoony style, but the way that it meshes with the violence and the emotions on the face and everything, it kind of works. Where here, it felt like you were taking an 80s cartoon style and throwing modern violence on top of it, and it just didn't quite work for me personally. But that's a nitpick. I did like the story. I will check out issue 2. And if you're a Silverhawks fan, I think you'll really like this. Next up, we have DC Power: Rise of the Power Company. This, and I'm not even sure I've finished this. I read like 3 of the stories at the very least. I might have I can't remember if I finished or not, to be honest. This is an anthology. There are several stories through it. We start off with the Josiah Power story, which is probably the most interesting. There is a story with the 2 Green Lantern. I think that's where I left off, actually. I was reading the Green Lantern and Cyborg story. Is Joe Mullane and Cyborg teaming up, kind of going through the Justice League Watchtower and all that stuff. Before that, there was a Vixen and Malik, or Malik is this character that they tried to make the new Black Adam, but during Absolute Power, his powers went wonky or whatever. So it was kind of reintroducing us to Malik, who is once again going to be a Shazam type hero. And he's a doctor, and he meets up with Vixen, and they have a team up because these people are hunting metahumans and they have to protect them and that kind of thing. So that was that little side story. And I think there might have been one other. Looks like Duke from or Signal from the Batman family is in there as well. So I did not get to read that story. So just keep that in mind. I did not read the entire book. I'm realizing that now. But I did read those first 2 stories all the way through. Josiah Power is an interesting character, and I think what happened to him, and I won't spoil that, but what happened to him during Absolute Power as well, or because of Absolute Power, his nephew, which we find this out very early, his nephew has died during Absolute Power, if you did not know this. And it affected him not just mentally and emotionally and all that stuff, but it also affected his powers. And apparently he's had a history of not being able to control them, and his nephew was the one that kind of kept him in check. And now that he's gone, he's having to like go into space and emit all this energy. But secretly, he is bringing back this company because he blames Amanda Waller for his nephew's death, and so he's taking it upon himself to basically create a task force to kill this movement of Waller was right. And that's kind of the premise of where we're going with him, and I think we'll see more of him a lot in the future. Um, the others were just kind of again, it was celebrating Black History Month, highlighting some of the characters in the DC universe, and kind of giving us some fun stories with them, and then reintroducing us to some of those characters, I think, and where those characters will be headed in various storylines in the future. But those stories, I felt like they felt like anthology stories. You know what I mean? Mainstream anthology stories, I should clarify. You've read like anniversary issues. You've read these kind of celebratory issues, whether it's Marvel Voices, whatever it is. You know how the anthology stories work. They're just short little side stories that don't really affect like overall continuity all that much. But all in all, I still think it's a good celebration to do. And Josiah Power is an interesting character, and I'm glad I read it just to get acquainted with that character, because I do want to know what he's up to in the future in the DC universe. And I'm still going to go back and read the rest of it, because I do like Signal, and I want to see what that story is, if that ties into something with Batman and all that stuff. So we'll see. All right, and finally, we have Green Lantern issue number 19. This kicks off the new era of Green Lantern. This is the first part of this when it goes into Green Lantern Corps next week. So in this one, we are still heavily focused on the Corps. We have Hal and going back to Earth and getting Carol and trying to recruit her, but basically she's like, I'm learning a lot from the Justice League, and I want to do this differently this time, so I'm gonna stay, but you go do your thing. That's basically how that happens. And then he fills her in on everything that happened in the previous Green Lantern stuff, with Guy Gardner taking the Book of Oa, her ex being this Sorrow character. So we learn a little bit more about that. We get players in place, and we learn that the Green Lantern Corps, because they're kind of low in numbers right now, they've gone outside of the Corps to recruit. So we bring in Connor Kent, Superboy. We bring in this Odyssey time thief, and there's some kind of love connection going between those two characters. And so we're bringing in outside people to kind of help the Corps, and they're sent off by the end of the issue into different directions, because there's threats and anomalies at different places. So it's basically a setup issue for this larger story that's going to be taking place in the Green Lantern books going forward. But it let us know where characters were. It let us have this nice parting moment between Hal and Carol as well. I thought the art could be a little stronger in this issue. Definitely not as strong as we had been getting in the Green Lantern book. So we'll see if it improves going forward. But I'm still very much on board with the Green Lantern books. Jeremy Adams has become one of my favorite writers of present day. So yeah, Green Lantern must read for me. All right, that's all the recaps that I have. So let's get into the books that are coming out next week. We'll start off with our first honorable mention, which is Gatchaman Only One Earth issue 1. The reason this is an honorable mention is because I kind of fell off all the Gatchaman stuff, just trying to keep up with everything, and some things got to be cut. So unfortunately, this was one of the things, because again, I don't have a huge connection to Battle of the Planets and Gatchaman and all that stuff. So but speaking of, those older properties revived, this one is from Mad Cave. And if you have been following the Gatchaman stuff, you'll want to check this one out. Is this a miniseries or a one-shot? It says Joe and Ken's friendship is pushed to the limit during a mission to save Arena's princess. The science ninja team uncovers an ancient temple that may hold the key to defeating Galactor once and for all. So yes, this is the first issue of an event, actually, that connects to the ongoing series. So if you are reading the ongoing series, you definitely want to pick this one up, because this is an event tie-in, which I did not realize. So yeah, definitely a must-read for Gatchaman fans. The next honorable mention is from Dark Horse. This is Frankenstein New World, The Sea of Forever, issue 1. This is in the Hellboy BPRD universe. So, and this is Frankenstein and the young, probably going to mispronounce this, but Lila or Lilja navigate the world above ground to follow uh, her vision, but an ancient and familiar evil follows them wherever they go. So this is written by Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, and Tom Snigowski, with art by Peter Berging. So it's, you know, your classic Hellboy BRD teams, creative teams. So if you are a fan of that universe, you might want to check this one out. And the last honorable mention is from IDW Publishing. This is Star Trek Section 31, issue number 1. This is tying into, or it's kind of setting up this the new movie that's coming out, the Star Trek Section 31 movie. And this issue features Emperor Philippa Giorgio on a brand new raucous and exhilarating adventure. So I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I do like the movies, but if you are excited about the Section 31 movie, you might want to check this one out as well. We jump into our rated books with Archie's Valentine Spectacular Issue 1. If you're an Archie fan like me, you might want to check this one out. It features a brand new story, the official comic of Valentine's Day, as it says. And this one is written by somebody new, Jamie Lee Rotante. I'm not familiar. Art by Holly Golightly and Jim Amash, so that's a classic team there. But I'm not familiar with the writer, so I don't know much about it, but it's an Archie story. It's just this fun little aside thing, and especially if you want to introduce, you know, your kids to comics or whatever, it's a cool way to do it as well. So yeah, I'm always down for a good Archie book, but because again I don't know the writer that well, I'll say potentially good for this one. But it's Archie. It's timeless, right? Next up from DC Comics, we have Birds of Prey issue number 18. This one is on here because it is a new story. We kind of wrapped up the last story last issue, so this splinters the team into two different directions. Constantine needs help moving this demon across planes, so she has to enlist the team of Big Barda and Cass Kane. So this a really interesting team because, you know, it's Little Bat and, you know, Big Barda. So I think that's a cool team up to just kind of focus on those two characters, which are I think it's safe to say they're the favorite characters of the series. But in the meantime, Dinah, Sin, and Megara are going off on another mission. So you're splitting that team apart, and we're going to follow two different adventures, and we'll see how that goes. You know, this is written by Kelly Thompson, who is again one of my favorite writers, but this particular series is kind of hit and miss. So we'll see if this one is a fun story or not. But again, when you're focusing on Big Barda and Cass together, I think that's a recipe for success. So we'll see though. But for me, I'm going to give this one a potentially good. Next up, we have the book that almost became my thumbnail for this video, which was Star Wars Legacy of Vader issue number 1. We are kind of not rebooting, but relaunching a little the Star Wars universe at Marvel. They're, you know, doing a new number 1 Star Wars book later on. They, you know, this one, and I think there was one before this. But this is Darth Vader's shadow extends into the rise of the First Order in this issue. So we're focusing on, I guess, his impact, his presence felt within this First Order that we, of course, are familiar with through the movies with Kylo Ren and all that stuff. So this kind of kicks off that. So that's exciting. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is something to check out. This is written by Charles Soule, who's done a lot of Star Wars work for Marvel, art by Luke Ross. So I'm definitely going to check this one out, and I'm curious about the beginning of the First Order as well. And I'm going to give this one a promisingly good. From Boom Studios, we have Bronze Faces issue number 1. I didn't read a whole lot into this because it's a very long description, as you can see here. This is written by Shobo Coker with art by Alexandre Tefingate. I apologize if I did not pronounce those correctly. And Shof Coker is also doing art. This draws from Nigerian heritage, this book, and I'll just read a little bit of it. We're in we follow these childhood friends, Timmy, Sango, and Gabanka, who reunite in London for the purchase of the works of Timmy's father. And he's been invited as a guest of honor for this event at this museum where they put these artifacts on display, but this trio just views it as thievery. They view it as this cultural theft of the sacred, items in their culture. So they decide we're going to steal them back. In the process, they come in contact with this thing called the Register, which is it outlines dozens of colonial era stolen artifacts. And so that turns them onto these things called the Benin bronzes, which are, I assume, these bronze masks that were culturally stolen in their view, and they want to steal them back now. So this is from authors of New Masters, which I'm not familiar with, and it is from the artist that did Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, which I did like, and The Good Asian. So I really did like the art in both of those books. Not familiar with the New Masters. I can't remember if I tried that or not. But anyway, interesting concept, interesting story, and I'm always interested in exploring like different perspectives and cultures and that kind of thing. So, and Boom does some really strong books. So I'm curious about this one. I'm definitely at least going to look at it, and I'm going to give this one a possibly good, just because, again, I'm not familiar with the writing team, but it seems like they're acclaimed. And yeah, so if that sounds interesting to you, go check it out from Boom Studios. Next up from DC, we have Shazam issue number 20. This is a brand new story with a guest writer coming on for a one-shot story. This is written by Sina Grace with art by Dan McDade, and this guest stars John Kent, who comes in and gets caught in the lightning when Shazam transforms, and it transforms John into a baby. Yeah, we're going there. We're doing that classic like 80s style story here, and everybody that complained about the aging up of John, now you can see him aged way down. So I think that's kind of hilarious. But I've enjoyed the Shazam series. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm just looking for fun with this one. But because of the type of story that it is, I'm gonna give it a potentially good, and kind of hedge my bets on that one. So heading across the aisle, as it were, to the Ultimates issue number 9 for Marvel Comics, we get the introduction to Ultimate Luke Cage in this issue. Luke Cage and the Ultimate Prison Break is the title of this story. And this is by art by Chris Allen, still written by Dennis Camp, and we are getting both the history and the future of this version of Luke Cage. And yeah, we're gonna see what this version of Luke Cage, who is kind of, I won't say manipulating things, but kind of controlling certain outcomes even from within prison. That's what the description alludes to. So the Ultimates has been really strong since, I think it was issue 6 or 7, where we had that big encounter between Hulk and the Ultimates. And so from there, it's gotten better and better. And now we're introducing Luke Cage into the universe as well. So that's going to be fun to watch unfold. So I'm there for it. I'm excited for this one, and I'm giving this one a promisingly good. And speaking of Luke Cage, comes our final book for this week, our final first book, I should say. Power Man Timeless, issue number 1. This is written by the creative team of Kelly and Lansing, who have done so much, great work, so many great stories at Marvel in recent years. They did like a lot of the Captain America stuff with that, I cannot think of the organization, but as like the 5 points of the star kind of thing, where the shield that whole story, you know what I'm talking about, with the Winter Soldier who came into power in that whole organization kind of thing. Anyway, that's some of their recent work. They've done plenty of other things as well, but this is spinning out of that Timeless one shot that we got not too long ago, and this features a version of Luke Cage that is from the future, who is gamma radiated, who also has the power of Iron Fist, but he comes to present day Marvel and encounters a foe that even he has trouble kind of matching, and a mystery starts to unfold as well. So that's kind of where we're going with this. That's all the information that we have. We've got Bernard Chang on art, but I'm excited about this. I think this could be fun. I like this character from that one shot. and I like Luke Cage in general, so I'm curious about this one. But yeah, because we don't know the villain, we don't know the actual story, I'm gonna give this one a potentially good, and we'll see what happens with it. But I am looking forward to this book. And that is all of the first issues for next week. So, as I normally do, I will share a few other books that I'm anticipating. First off, from Image Comics, we have Juvenile issue number 3. I've enjoyed this series so far. The first 2 issues were solid. It's basically all these kids are told that um, they have to take this medicine or they'll die, right? Because all the kids under a certain age, I think it's 25, might be 18. I don't remember exactly. Um, Die unless they take this medication. But what they're not told, which we find out very early in the first issue, is that the medication is actually suppressing what they're trying to hide. What the adults are trying to hide is that these kids are superpowered, basically. They can read minds, they can do different things, telekinesis, telepathy, that kind of thing. And so they are feeding them this lie and this medicine to keep them controlled, basically. But one kid has found out that he's learned the truth, and he's trying to kind of tell this other uh, kid that she can unlock this ability as well if she just stops taking her meds. And that's kind of where we left off with issue 2. So I'm excited about issue 3. I think it's a fun story. This one is written in and illustrated by Jesus or Orellana. So not someone I was familiar with before, but I have enjoyed this series so far. Next up, we have the Avengers issue number 23. We got introduced to the Black Cat within this story last issue. Now we are on this heist. Black Cat beat them to it. They're trying to steal something. Jed McKay trying to inject a character that he made, even better with that long Black Cat run into this book, where it has been floundering a little bit. So hopefully Black Cat can bolster it up. But I'm excited to see her come into full view, because we only got kind of a hint of her in last issue. So I want to see how she interacts with them in a full issue this time around. So that'll be very telling, I think, of the series going forward. Absolute Superman issue number 4. The Omega Men were introduced, I believe, at the end of last issue. So now we're going to get the full effect of those in here, and we're going to find out whether they're friends or foes of Superman in this universe. But this has been a solid book as well. Still my second favorite of the Absolute books. Batman just killing it. This one is next, and then Wonder Woman's kind of lagging behind for me personally. Batgirl issue number 4. This has been a really fun series with her having to team with her mother, Lady Shiva, because of this cult that is coming to try to kill both of them, and she doesn't know whether to trust her, and it goes back and forth. And I think, even though that first issue was a little repetitive, I think we've kicked it into high gear since then, and it's been a fun ride. I'm looking forward to the next issue of that. And keeping with that Batman train, we got Batman issue 157. The Court of Owls, their plan got revealed, and now Batman has to kind of fight this war on multiple fronts. And so we're going to see what happens with that. I think this has been a fun arc. I've really enjoyed this basically last run of Chip Zdarsky. It's the best run, in my personal opinion. And finally, with the Bat books, we got Batman Off-World issue number 6. It's finally here, the finale of this story that started so long ago that I don't even remember when. And I forgot all about this book until I saw it on the list. I'm like, oh, we're finally going to see how this story comes to a close. So, I'm definitely going to check it out, but I am kind of disappointed in the release schedule for this one. The Sacrificers issue number 14. Last issue, Pigeon realized how dark things were and how far he had fallen and how hypocritical maybe he had been. And so, things are not going great for our 2 characters that we're following, which is Seluna. I think Seluna, is that her name? The daughter of the gods, and Pigeon, both of them in kind of dire situations. But now we're down to a life or death situation in this issue. So we'll see how that plays out. And then the Rockefellers issue number 3 from Ghost Machine Image Comics. They're hiding out in the 21st century, but now there's a bounty hunter coming to get them from the 25th century, and we'll see if they can evade, because they accidentally kind of made people aware of their presence in the last issue, which was kind of a Christmas issue and it was a fun issue. But yeah, it kind of alerted people to where they might be. So we'll see how that plays out as well. But that's it. That's all the books that I have to talk about. And I hope you enjoyed that recap, those recaps, and the look ahead to the book coming out next week. I'm enjoying doing the show. I hope you're enjoying watching it. If you are, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel, really does help the videos, and it, just makes me feel good. Of course, you can also hit that subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss any of the other episodes, any of the other content on this channel. You can follow me across social media at Only Good Comics, or type in onlygoodcomics.com to take you right back to this YouTube channel where we talk about only good comics. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care. Keep reading those comics. See you soon. Bye.